extraneous, but when Mother says we have all been together before, or we would not be here to carry on this work, how is that expressed in your terms?
There are groups of souls that have alignment of purpose. There are souls which aspire for a particular kind of realization, or who choose to serve for a particular work. And so Mother uses the term group of souls or a family of souls, and all those of us who are aligned to this new manifestation of the supramental consciousness. It's not something that the soul has chosen suddenly, oh yeah, I'm born now, let me see, hey, that looks interesting. It doesn't go like that. The soul has taken birth with that intention, recognizing this opportunity. And if it has taken birth with that intention, then it has already been preparing for it earlier. And every time that there was an opportunity like this, these souls have come together to prepare for this new possibility and work for it. And then when the opportunities were not so strong, they have wandered around preparing for the next opportunity, and then again coming together for this opportunity. And so Mother's very clear statement, and she said this in the playground to including the children, she said, all of us who are here, she said, you've all been promised that when the opportunity would come for the realization, you would be given a chance. Promised by who? By her. So, yes. And then she says, you may not remember, but I remember. And she said, that's why you're here. Now, that was a way in which she was trying to remind us of why we are here. And then she went to the extent of saying, the opportunity here is so important. What it represents in evolutionary terms is so important that it's worth it to set aside all other distractions that you may dedicate yourself to this realization. And she suggests in the wording that, there are things you've been doing across lives. Across lives you've done this and that and you're repeating it. What's the point of wasting your energy in those distractive tendencies? This is a time when you can do this and you will not get this chance again. So she says it's worth setting aside all those distractions to dedicate yourself to this purpose. And I'm going to generalize this to all who are listening here. What she said is not limited to those who were sitting in front of her in the 1950s. I said this to somebody recently. He said, oh, so-and-so is so lucky he was there in the 1950s. Okay? And I said to the guy, how do you know you were not there? He said, yeah, I don't know. So I said, how do you know you were not in the ashram with the Mother in the 1930s, and then you left your body at that point and now you've incarnated here and that's what's brought you here? He says, yeah, I don't know. So I said, just because you don't know doesn't mean that it's not so, right? And I'm saying this, again, not being in the ashram. The ashram was what, 50, 100, 200 people. We were with them for so many incarnations, every time that this work was to be done. And so, we may not remember in this life, but the soul knows, the soul remembers, and that's why it's been drawn to this. It's been attracted, it recognizes the presence and the work that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother represent. It says, this is it, this is what I want, this is what I've come for. And then wherever you are in the world, whatever external form of circumstances and work you may be doing, if you have this affinity and call to be a part of the work of the new creation and the new manifestation, know that you have taken birth for this purpose. And whatever scope and form of work you're doing, this is what your life should be dedicated for. And it doesn't mean you have to leave all that and settle in the ashram. That's not what she intended. Even those that she prepared in the ashram, she launched into the world so that this consciousness or this commitment to manifesting the new world can plant its seeds in all activities of the world, everywhere in the world. And so what is important is not where you are or what you are doing, but that you commit yourself to manifesting something of the new consciousness in your life. And that's what we are here for.
With the descent of the Sukband, does one have to know about Mother and Sri Aurobindo?
No, obviously not. You may not know them in name or in form, but you will know them in consciousness.
Yes.
Because what Mother and Sri Aurobindo represent, and that's why I'm using this phrase represent, it's not this body and this form in which they were incarnated here, but that particular consciousness of the divine that is manifested to bring down the new consciousness and the new world. And they embody that consciousness. They represent that in an individualized form. And so for me, even when I look at the Mother in this particular physical form and body, it's not this body that I see the Divine Mother who presides over the whole universe, who has presided over and led our lives across incarnations. And here she has embodied a part of herself in the human form. And what she is behind that form is the whole of the Divine Mother. And that's the Mother that we relate to. That's what she is really. Individuals in a species acquires a certain capacity. The entire species finds it easier to develop that capacity. So in this case, learning a particular maze. And then you may do that maze here in this laboratory, and a few days later you find the same maze in another laboratory. The rats there now solve it more easily, more quickly. And it suggests that we are all connected at the level of the species in consciousness. And each time that we grow as individuals, it imprints itself into the learning and knowledge and consciousness of the species. And the ashram as a focal point for the work of the new consciousness being manifested is intended to be such. Sri Aurobindo uses this phrase of a laboratory where human types and special types of each type of humanity is brought, and often the most difficult of those types has been brought for the work of the transformation of nature. And each time that the nature changes and something of the new consciousness is more established, or the nature opens to the new consciousness more freely, it has its ripple effect in humanity. And I would broaden this concept now to not just the physical space, but all of us in our own spaces as we work to develop ourselves, and especially in relation to the new consciousness and the supramental consciousness and the supramental world that is manifesting. That is our most direct contribution to the whole of humanity. And it often happens that the very fact that you are making this effort and you represent a certain type, all the difficulties of that type tend to accumulate in you and exaggerate in you. And all the opposition to that change which should be distributed in humanity tends also to accumulate around you, because the energy of change being pushed in you triggers also the energy of opposition now to accumulate around you. So by the very fact that you are making a special effort, it seems to exaggerate the resistance. And if you let go and say, no, I'm just going to have an easy life and do nothing, the energy goes away and suddenly everything is easy. And if you shift once again, I'm going to make this change, there's an accumulation of the opposition or resistance. And rather than taking it personally, we just accept that that's your work to overcome and change yourself enough that this difficulty will not have to be faced by others in humanity once you have been able to make the change. And that's how it works. And then ending with this idea, you're not doing this alone. Remember, all of your life and your journey has been led by the Mother, that you've been brought in contact with her in this incarnation is because she remembers even if you forgot, and therefore her help is in you, is inside you all the time. And if you invoke her help, ask for her to do the work, then she pushes through the burden of the resistance and difficulty and carries you in her arms into the new consciousness, changing and shaping your nature your character, your palm, your horoscope, all that becomes irrelevant or changes to reflect the growth in your consciousness. So call for help. Feel her in your heart and let her lead your journey. And that's how you will find every day becomes one more joyous step of growth. And that's what we are here for. That's why we are born in this life.
Thank you.